All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this here. And let's go to our place blocks, and maybe we'll bring this down to maybe 70. And the score here, we want to make sure that our score is actually score. And we'll say score in there. And lastly, the timer, what we'll do is we'll just simply place 10 here. So let's take a look at this. And we'll take a look at how this works here. And look at that. Well, that looks pretty good. Notice how the labels, everything is the nodes are being pushed behind the all the text here. Now that's done automatically for you. However, if you want to set that programmatically, we can say block dot z position is equal to -1, and that will put it behind everything. So 0 is the normal, and anytime you spawn something, it will put it on top of it. So if you push the z position as -1, it will put it behind. Now, in this particular instance, it doesn't matter, but in other instances, it might. All right. So we now have our place blocks here. What we need to do is we need to set up the timers. So the timers are really important here. And even before we do that, we can set up our update score to lbl score dot text is equal to score score. All right, and you want to make sure there's a colon in there and everything. All right, and there we go. And you can see here that we want to call update score. So we'll go up to the top here and we'll say update score. All right. And there we go. You can see that I'm getting points every time I click, and that's the whole point of this here. Now, obviously the timer is not doing anything because we haven't told it to do anything. So let's tell it to do something. First of all, let's set up our countdown timer for the placing. We'll say function, we'll call this countdown timer is placing. Okay, and in here we need a wait, so we'll say skaction.wait for duration, and this is the interval of our timer. So in this case, it's 1 second. We'll say let countdown is equal to skaction dot run block, and we'll add this in here. This run block, we will say countdown timer placed, which is the integer that we want here, is equal to countdown timer placed -1. So we're just going to subtract 1 from that. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we can say lbl timer dot z position is equal to 1. Now this is in case the timer gets put to the back. And sometimes when you spawn objects, where you could spawn objects over another object, you really need to set the z position. In this case, again, it does work, but in other cases, you'll need to add that in here. All right. So just as a bit of a tip, because I've had a lot of frustration with that. All right. We'll say if countdown timer is placed is less than or equal to 5. Okay. What we'll do is we'll say that this lbl timer dot text is equal to, and we'll say this is the countdown timer is placed. Now, what we can also do is we can also say if is being placed double equal to true, because we only want this to happen if it's double equal to true. Now, as a tip, you can always cut that out. So I used Command X, and then I paste it in here, and that way your formatting is a little bit better. That indentation is super important. All right. So we can say if is being placed is equal to true, and then we'll say if countdown timer is placed is less than or equal to 0, then we'll say this is self And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set up another function here. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to call the countdown timer collecting. So we'll say function countdown timer is collecting. Okay, and then when the timer runs out, so it's less than or equal to 0, we'll go to countdown timer is collecting. Then what we'll do is we'll set our game state variable. So is being placed is equal to false, and we'll say is collecting is equal to true. Now remember, these game state variables are super important to set, and that's why I like to use more than one of them, is because we know exactly which one's what. So we know that is being placed is false and is collecting is now true. All right, so what we need to do after that is we need to set this in a sequence. So we'll say let sequence is equal to skaction.sequence, and in that sequence we're going to say wait, then we're going to count down. Make sure it's the sk action. Then we're going to go to self.run action sk action dot repeat action. And what we can do is we can say we'll repeat the sequence a total of countdown timer placed. Okay, and we'll just repeat it that many times here. Okay, now the major part to this is that you want is being placed is equal to true in order to make this work. All right. The reason why we want that is because that countdown timer, if you, for example, make another more intensive game where you have more game states, you're going to want to say and print all this stuff if the game state is correct. So now that we have our first timer, our second timer is fairly straightforward. It's almost the exact same thing. We're going to add in our wait, and we'll make that equal to skaction.wait for duration, and we'll make the duration 1.0. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say let count down is equal to skaction.runBlock. So even though we're setting up the exact same code, we do once you know how to set up a timer, you can set up 100 in theory. All right, so we're going to say countdown timer collected. Okay, this is the collected timer is equal to countdown timer collected minus 1. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to say that LBL main dot font size is equal to 80. And you're going to see why I'm going to do this in just a second here. LBL main dot text is equal to, we'll say collect blocks. Now the reason why we took down instead of 8, let's make it 60, because collect blocks takes up more space than place blocks. And you can add an exclamation point for effect. Okay, we're going to go to LBL main dot font color is equal to orange custom color. Okay, so we're going to change the font color to orange custom color. Then we're going to go to LBL main dot or LBL timer dot font color is equal to orange custom color, and then we're going to go to LBL score dot font color is equal to orange custom color. So we're going to switch everything up. Okay, we're going to switch the color. And switching the color is the best way to let the user know when something is going on. So we now have our timers here. Let's go say if is collecting is double equal to true. Okay, want to make sure we're in that game state. And then within here, we're going to say if countdown timer collected is less than or equal to 3. So we'll say it's less than or equal to 3. We'll go to LBL timer dot text is equal to, and we'll say this is countdown timer collected. Then we need to say if countdown timer collected is less than or equal to 0. Okay. And within here, we're going to say is complete is double equal to true. And then we're going to add in another function here called game over logic. And I want to make sure there's a space in there. And we'll call self.gameOverLogic. Let's go outside of this run block here. We'll say let sequence is equal to skaction.sequence. And we'll do wait, then countdown. And then we're going to go to self.runAction, skaction.repeatAction. We're going to repeat the sequence a total of count down timer collected times. Okay? This includes a tutorial.